Whilst 2020 was a rough year for many people, Star Wars Squadrons ended up being my most favourite game of that year. And whilst there is no more content updates coming to the game anymore, albeit one cosmetic update coming on May the 4th, it does beg the question, will we actually see a Star Wars Squadrons sequel? And honestly, the thought isn't that far-fetched, considering the fact that the game sold so well that it surpassed EA's expectations in the first month of sales. That, coupled with Star Wars Squadrons creators, EA Motive Studios, having their big 6-year project being cancelled by EA this month. And whilst many will be sad to hear about that, it does make the sequel to Star Wars Squadrons just that little bit more believable. So I wanted to go over my 5 most anticipated features that I would like to see in Star Wars Squadrons 2. But before I jump into it, guys, I want to give a big shout out to our Discord. We currently have an EcksToo meme competition going up with a first prize of 250 Canadian dollars. So if you want to get involved in that, as well as the community with Star Wars Squadrons, Empire at War and Battlefront 2, definitely come and join our EcksToo Discord. We've got so much there that you can enjoy, so definitely don't miss out. But with that all said and done, let's get right into the video. First up, players wanted to have more customization over their starfighters. In Star Wars Squadrons, you're able to select a paint job, and on top of that, you're able to select an emblem to go on top of the exterior of the ship as well. Besides that, that's the only external customization you can make on a ship. And whilst there are plenty of skins that you can use in Star Wars Squadrons, there's only a very few of them that completely change how the ship looks. The others kind of share the same skin, just with a different paint color. So in Star Wars Squadrons 2, I think it'd be really cool to be able to change smaller aspects of your ship to make you stand out more. Things like choosing the material that you want to use for your starfighter. Star Wars Squadrons does do this, but it's very, very limited. You can choose the chromatic steel look, but then there's also this rustic gold variant that you can use as well. And there's also Rust Bucket for the free people who really enjoy that one too. But besides that, every other skin just follows the same metal material. It'd be really cool to interchange some paint jobs alongside what material you want your ship to be made out of. But it's not only starfighters we'd like to see more customization on as well. The character customization is really limited in Star Wars Squadrons. You had a selection of 5 different pre-made character faces, with like 2 to 3 alien races put on top of that. Apart from Zeltron, which is just a repaint of another existing character. So it would have been really cool to customize our pilot just a little bit more in depth. Personally, I would have liked to have been able to change my character's emotes and designs a bit quicker and easier in the menus. In Star Wars Squadrons, you have to go into the hangar and then pick a certain area of that hangar to change your pilot, and that's already 3 layers of having to get into that menu. It would be really cool to be able to do that on the main menu, or be able to do it directly in the briefing room before a game. Because of this, many people just stick with the same emote or victory pose, and almost everything else actually. It's just too much effort and too little time to kind of customize it before a game. Next up, players wanted to see a few more different types of variations when it came to flagships. In fleet battle modes, we have the standard MC-75 and the ISD-1. But in single player, we saw a lot more models that were never used in the multiplayer games. We had the Gazanti Cruisers, the Quasar Carrier, and even an MC-80 Liberty type also. So there was ample opportunity to have different flagships during fleet battles. I think that alone would have made the gameplay a lot more diverse, which could have opened up more meta styles of gameplay on online games. You're playing against the MC-75? Okay, well you need to run this ship with this loadout. And then that being something different when you go against an MC-80, for example. Whilst many players also asked for different types of ships like the K-Wing, the ARC 170, and even the TIE Advanced, which is actually in Star Wars Squadrons by the way, I don't think they necessarily make too much sense. We already have our perfect 10 starfighters, and each of those starfighters fulfill their roles pretty well, apart from the B-Wing. Sorry B-Wing mains, the ship is still not that good. So I think it'd be a much more effective and interesting take to have different flagships per game rather than more starfighters. And let's take it a step further. Imagine if it was an 8v8 team where you had to take on a Super Star Destroyer while defending your Viscount. Feels a lot more interesting than throwing in a TIE Raptor and calling it a day. Such an ugly ship. Coming in at number 3, players wanted to see the game go free to play. Star Wars Squadrons came in at a $40 price tag, which is lower than what you see for most AAA games, yes, but the game was built to be kind of like a live service, but it ended up not being so. And as a result, a lot of people were dedicated to the single player campaign and are not even touching the multiplayer side of things. And this kind of made a lot of sense because they added in really interesting characters like Wedge from Rogue Squadron. So what happened is that a lot of players paid the $40 price tag to play the single player campaign, which is like 6 hours long by the way, and then not even getting to the meat of the actual game, which is the multiplayer side of things. So for the request for it to be a free-to-play model would actually benefit that type of gameplay so much more. So first of all, that means a lot more people playing the game, and that is fantastic for you because it's better matchmaking and that the game can run as a live service instead. So in return, we'd be able to get new maps or new cosmetics each month through, say, a battle pass or something. So if people don't want to pay for the game and just play it, they lose out on nothing but cosmetics. Obviously, we don't mean a pay-to-win scheme here, by the way. Just that the fact that this game works so well as a live service that the second game needs to follow that structure and essentially stop hiding behind a single-player campaign. For me personally, this is my biggest request out of all 5 of these. There is nothing I would love more than to see regular updates month by month to Star Wars Squadrons 2, and then having a new season every 3 months which changes up how you should play the game. It keeps things fresh, it keeps things really exciting, and the game doesn't have to suffer a slow decline in active players because we know there'll be new content right around the corner. The fourth thing players wanted to see in Star Wars Squadrons 2 is more random events happening in fleet battle mode. When you've played Star Wars Squadrons for a very long time like we have, things can get a little bit more formulaic. And what I mean by that is that you can end up doing the same thing over and over again no matter what map you're on. Yes, things tweak a little bit if you're playing on the Xavian Beers compared to Foster Haven, but it can end up feeling like you're following a formula and whichever team performs it the best ends up winning the game. So many players have suggested something should happen which changes how you play the game midway through. So say for example, instead of a CR-90 jumping in when attack phase has begun, a Quasar jumps in instead. And then rather it do damage to the enemy artisans, it allows players to go and resupply nearer to the enemy line. This changes the dynamic of battle. Instead of the enemy team worrying about extra damage coming from a CR-90, suddenly they have to worry about the fact that players can resupply and respawn much closer to the front lines. This would change the dynamic of that match completely. So suddenly you're no longer following a formula. The only way to win is to react faster to the situation that's been put in front of you. I honestly think this would add a lot more interesting gameplay footage and definitely make the esports scene a lot more intense. And yes, unfortunately there are some esports games where you can kind of tell who's going to win in the first 10 minutes of the game. But the fifth and final suggestion players wanted to see in Star Wars Squadrons 2 is something I teased at a little earlier in today's video, and that being large fleet battle game modes. Now there was a lot of ideas from players for this suggestion, some that work like the Viscount versus the Executor, and some that might not, like a 60v60 player system. Whilst that would work for Battlefront 2, I don't think it would work for Squadrons. But it would be very cool to up the ante to a sort of final boss phase of fleet battles. Say for example there was 10 players each team, 8 in starfighters and maybe 2 in frigates. And if Super Star Destroyers sound a little bit too unrealistic, space stations would work just as well. And just to merge this idea with the one previously that I mentioned, it'd be really cool to queue up to fleet battle, and every now and then that fleet battle would be a big version instead. So everyone on your team has to scramble to get their loadouts correct for this exact game mode. But for some, I'm pretty sure they would like to have it separate. But this is where I pass the question over to you guys. Did I miss out on some suggestions that you would like to see in Star Wars Squadrons 2? I know many people would have liked to have seen a third-person view, something that Starfighter Assault in Battlefront 2 actually does. If I've missed out that or any other things in this video, let me know in the comments down below. I'll try to read through all of them and try to get back to some of you as well. But besides that guys, I've been Charlie, you've been watching EcksToo, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care guys.